Yo, what's up?
What
How you
is
doing?
up, Stuart and Prince?
Prince, what's up, man?
Hey, what's up? What's going on? Thank y'all for having me on the show. Definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, this is Film and Storehouse podcast for all of our listeners. They probably know that because they're listening to it already. But hey, Prince, I got a big question for you.
What's up?
Super important question. Halloween's coming up.
You said okay.
What is your favorite Halloween candy? Like your go-to Halloween candy?
Good question.
I like those Halloween edition Reese's cups.
Yes.
Reese's cups.
Yes.
All the holiday version Reese's are the best. Like whatever they do with that ratio,
more peanut butter,
like the Christmas tree, the freaking Halloween one.
I don't know if it's the same thing, but they just put a different wrapper on it. But they're my go-to.
Yeah.
Crack. I think they put.
I'm still trying to figure out who eats candy corn. I don't know why does that keep coming out? Why is it still around? Why it's a big thing? I don't know who eats candy corn. So,
it's awful. It's like the worst candy ever.
Yeah, but your kids, like my kids, if it has a sugar content to it, my kids are like, I'm in. I got it. Like it has sugar, like the Peeps. When you look forward, like when you look out to like Easter, those Peeps are nasty, dude. But my kids,
horrible.
Yeah.
What's your candies, dude?
I mean, Reese's, man. So either Reese's or I always go to Starbursts. I like Starbursts.
Yeah, that's the only candy I think I could do that's not that and Jolly Ranchers. Jolly Ranchers, I can do a Starburst. Everything else got to be kind of some type of chocolatey type feel. But it's like a little everyday candies, probably Starburst or Now or Later. Those was big when I was. I don't really see them around as much, but it was.
Yeah, they're good.
It was popping back in the day when I was in high school. So.
Yeah.
What's yours, Dave?
I agree with you on the chocolate, man. Like and I'll tell you what I find myself Jones and obviously the Reese's. I'm not a big candy guy, but Halloween brings out, and then the mini Snickers. You just pop those things. Those are good, man. They perfect mix of nuts and caramel and chocolate. Yeah, it's got to have chocolate, dude. The chewy stuff.
The worst thing is those little candy bowls. Usually the people that had the candy bowls, I walk by people's desks and I raise my hand. If I walk by your desk and you got Beirut, Snickers, Mr. Good Bar, anything like that, and you missing about two or three, it was me.
Yeah.
I definitely like, oh man.
You can eat the smaller ones at your leisure, right? Like, because they're not as many calories, so you can eat as many as you want.
Yeah, exactly. Bite size, crack it open, you out of there, you're done.
You burn more calories chewing that tiny candy
than you actually intake.
Yeah, so no, they're fine. That's what I tell myself every year.
Well, let me ask you this question, Dave. What's your favorite candy bar?
Candy bar.
I think I always default to the peanut butter and chocolate, man. If I'm gonna eat something like that, it's gonna be a Reese's.
A Reese's.
Reese's peanut butter cup. Reese's peanut butter cup.
Over Beirut?
Yeah, man. Baby Ruth? Yeah.
Twix?
Way over all.
The peanut butter Twix. The peanut butter Twix.
I don't even know.
You never had the peanut butter Twix?
No.
It's delicious.
Yeah, peanut butter. Yeah, that's a good one. Definitely had those. Twix, Sneakers, what's else? Old school is like Mr. Good Bar. That's old school.
Yeah.
I can't do Crunch. I can't do the Hershey's bar. But yeah, I put Beirut up there. Beirut is, like one of my top go-to candy bars if I'm going to have a candy bar.
All right.
I'm not going to judge it.
I'm not going to. But I won't kick a Reese's out of bed either, so,
Yeah.
I don't put them in the candy bar lane. They're in their own little world.
They got their own world going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually what's awesome, we're just going to spend the next 45 minutes or
so talking about candy
bars and Stu.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how you feeling today? How you feeling?
I'm good, man. I'm recovering. I had a little, I've had a little 2-day recovery. My wife didn't want me to talk about it because she's embarrassed, but we had a little party for one of our friends. She was turning 40, and I'm a lightweight when it comes to having alcoholic beverages.
Dude had 1.5 beers, both Coors Light.
That's not true.
Both Coors Lights, and he was like hammered, couldn't walk straight.
I had 3
himself.
beers. I had 3 beers and 1 large shot of vodka, and it was awful. And I've been hard down for 2 days.
That's 2 days.
That's when you know. That's when you know you're old, is when you have 2-day hangovers off of 3 beers and a shot.
Wow.
Yeah.
So of all the things
I think
your wife has to be embarrassed about with being married to you, that's the thing that like that put it over.
Let's put it over the top. Yeah. She's like, she said that I shouldn't talk about my partying because it's very unchristian. So no.
Jesus turned water into wine, and
he was handing out wine to everybody. He's like,
he was, and it was the best wine.
Drink up.
It was the best wine. Now there are many things in the Bible about drunkenness and all that, but it didn't even sound like you were drunk. It just sounds like your body was like
it had a bad reaction.
You had to put a nipple on it, right?
Yeah.
Little baba, and then you were done.
All right, let's get like serious here. Let's talk about some stuff that actually like is worth listening to here. Like our listeners have probably already turned it off because this is the worst. This is like the worst intro ever. Prince.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about you, man. Let's talk about you. Give our listeners a little bit of background about who you are, where you came from, and what you're doing now.
Obviously my name is Prince Dykes. I was born in Augusta, Georgia, raised in a little small town of Waynesboro, Georgia, right outside of Augusta, about 45 minutes south, 40 minutes south of Augusta, Georgia. Grew up in a house I was the youngest of 4 brothers. My dad was a school teacher and my mom was a school teacher turned daycare center operator. So she started off as a school teacher and ended up going and starting her own daycare. My dad, he's a Vietnam veteran. He went to the Army during the Vietnam era because he's 75 now. And, he used a GI Bill to go to school, become a school teacher, got his first job up in Burke County, Waynesboro, Georgia. Met my mom in college. They had all 4 of us. So pretty middle-class background I grew up in, great parents, great brothers and things like that. And I want to say my junior year, I would say in high school type of student I was more like a CD type student. I was not athletic, not extremely popular, but average guy, nothing spectacular. I wasn't academic or I wasn't athletic or anything like that. So my future wasn't looking too promising going forward. So my brother was very interested in joining the military. And he tells the recruiter, hey, Chief Gilchrist, who I still talk to this day, hey, you need to talk to my little brother. He comes and talks to me one day over the weekend and, got me very interested in going to the Navy. And I said, wow, I want to go up on this, take this opportunity because if this doesn't work, then I'm just going to be around Waynesboro, Georgia. Not saying there's anything wrong with Waynesboro, Georgia, but I had bigger aspirations in life. So I started my career off on submarines as a logistics specialist. That was my introduction into like inventory and finances and things like that. So I started to pique my interest. So while serving, went off and got my associate's degree, bachelor's degree, then my MBA, then went and did Series 65, Series 63 life insurance, health insurance, a slew of certifications, just learning and things like that. And I knew once I retired from the military one day that, hey, this is a field I want to go into in some type of way of capacity. So from there, I started my own YouTube channel back in 2013. It wasn't very popular back then. YouTube in general wasn't as popular as it is today. And podcasting back then was considered internet radio. So you just made an episode and just put it on your website, and that was kind of the end of it. And but I didn't really have the opportunities, or I won't say opportunities, I would say I didn't know the way to get to radio. So that wasn't an outlet. So I turned to internet radio, which eventually became podcasting. And then I couldn't get on TV. I didn't know how to get on TV. So I went to YouTube. That was the next best thing. And before it became, popular what it is today. It's kind of crazy now that everybody takes podcasts over radio and everybody takes YouTube over television. How that aged is crazy, but back then it was just for like the rejects. It's like, hey, if you can't get on the radio thing, you can make your own internet radio. So I started doing that back
edge, man.
13.
Front edge.
Say again?
You're on the front edge. You were a leader in the
exactly. So at the time I definitely didn't know it. It was just one of those things that was kind of going on, and I knew that's what I wanted to get into. So I started doing it just to kind of put a little content out here and there or whatever while I was, while serving and things like that. And when I started to think about it, like, man, all these things that I'm learning about, in finance, why didn't I know this as a child? And I asked my dad, I said, Dad, why you never brought us stocks or anything like that? And he said, son, I didn't know you could do that. He said, nowadays y'all can pick up your phone and buy stuff or whatever. He said, for me, I would have to drive to Atlanta and go to a stockbroker. Then I had to have so much money and whatever. So we didn't have that access. Like I didn't know I could do that. So my why started to build around, what if my dad knew? How it would have changed my life or maybe my brother's life or whatever, So I thought about we had a bunch of adult content out as far as like teaching adults and credit repair. Everything was more built upon repair. And, using my Navy knowledge of preventive maintenance. What are we doing to prevent this from happening? And, so I started thinking, well, what can I do to kind of prevent this from happening? Because it doesn't matter what a child does. It doesn't matter if they become an athlete, they become a singer or engineer or whatever, they're going to have finances they're going to have to deal with. So I decided to take it upon myself, and I now have a 10-year-old son, but I think at that time he was about 4 years old, and he used to bring home books all the time. His name is Wesley. So he used to bring home books all the time that said absolutely nothing. It would be like the cat jumped over the hat, that's the whales, made friends with the cat, and then they went off and, I don't know, rode a giraffe back into the forest or something like that. And it would absolutely say nothing. No offense to them. I know a lot of it was underlining lessons of learning how to say words and recognize animals and things like that. And I was like, man, in 10, 12 years, you need to know some real, you're going to be, pushed off into the world of knowing about finances. We need to be talking about investing and credit and insurance and real estate and taxes and those things. So, I just started to write the book, Wesley Learns to Invest. That was my first book I self-published back in 2015. Wrote it in 2014, published it by myself in 2015. And then, the second book came out in 2017. Well, I actually went to Shark Tank. I went to Shark Tank in 2016, pitched it there and said, hey, I would like to turn this book into a series. I created an app. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Start Engine. It's like the pre-IPO market where investors can go and invest into companies that haven't gone public yet. So I created this. That was what I created back in 2012. I created that app, and it was called IBOA, Investors and Business Owners Hub. When investors and business owners come together, you can find investors and things like that. Because I was paying attention, I saw in 2012, President Obama passed the Jobs Act. Before you could invest in the pre-IPOs, you had to be an accredited investor. So, President Obama came through with 2012 Jobs Act and kind of got rid of that. So it opened up the market to where you could be a small investor and invest like someone off the Shark Tank. So I said, well, great to know, but where do you go to do that? So if somebody is in Ohio with a coffee shop, how do you find that person? How does somebody in Ohio find me in Denver or whatever? It's no big sign to go. So I created it. I took it to the Shark Tank and I pitched that and things like that. And I became a finalist, but I didn't get picked up to get aired and things like that. So, but throughout that process, who did get aired was Famous Amos, the cookie legend. Famous Amos got aired twice on Shark Tank, and I saw him and I said, man, I would really like to meet him. He had got his new cookie inside of all of the Costco's in Hawaii. So I did some scrounging around and I met him, and he did my podcast. He just really loved my first book. He was just like, hey, Dude, I had no financial literacy when I created Famous Amos back in the 70s. And I just wish I'd known this as a child. I think this is extremely important. So he helped me launch the second book, was titled Wesley Learns About Credit. So we launched it at iHeartRadio in Honolulu, Hawaii. He came through, he hosted it and things like that. And he brought his cookies from Shark Tank, great guy, Wiley Amos, amazing story of, creating the Famous Amos brand and things he done in his life. And from there, I left and I moved to Denver, Colorado here. And, just being around, I was at the Broncos Stadium the first time I met Terrell Davis. He was there, for people who's not familiar with him, he was a Broncos. I think he's on the NFL Network now. He does the NFL Network in LA. And, Broncos legend, he's a Hall of Famer, NFL Hall of Famer, Broncos Hall of Famer, and, Super Bowl MVP, all that type of things like that. I grew up watching, he was the man back when I was like in middle school, high school, when the Broncos going to Super Bowl twice. And I just wanted to interview him on my podcast. And when we met, he just said, "Hey, Prince, man, I really love your first two books, And I said, "Well, I'm writing the third one." He said, "Well, you got to put me in your next book." So, okay, this guy's probably joking. I just wanted to get a picture. I just grew up watching you. I remember him being on Sesame Street and things like when I was. So he's like, "No, I'm
awesome.
serious." So he was serious, and it took about a year, some change, to get all the legality and all the stuff together, written, and we published together with at the Broncos Boys and Girls Club, where we launched it. And Rod Smith, he's a Broncos legend as well. He came and he hosted it, and we launched that in 2019. That itself turned into the Wesley Learns Book Club, where I said, okay, well, we got the books, that's great, but when I would go teach kids and show kids, it didn't feel like the results were tangible. Like, well, how can I gauge? How can I make a difference? Because I remember growing up as a child, we had all type of social programs. We had the Feed a Kid program where they would feed you in the park during the summertime. We had programs that would take you on a field trip, which were great, but it was nothing tangible that I can hold on and show today. So I just thought about it. I said, well, instead of selling everybody the pie in the sky type theory, what is something I can do? And that's when I came up with the whole idea of the kids, making kids shareholders of stocks. So what we did was we awarded, I want to say, about 7 kids stocks, where we've given away Apple, Coca-Cola, and what was the other company? Nike. Kids, brands that kids relate to, and they were sponsored by Bank of America, and they were sponsored by Belco Credit Union here in Denver. Lados is another company that sponsored. I'm trying. Hopefully, I'm not missing anybody, but those are ones that came through and sponsored for the kids to have they covered all the costs of the books. So all the kids had to do was read and pass the online quizzes, and they get to go to a pizza party. And at the end, we're awarding with a share of stock. So we was able to do that in DC. We did a couple out there in the DC area, a couple of DC Boys and Girls Clubs. Kids won. A couple out here in Denver where kids have won, and back in Georgia as well. And in my hometown of Waynesboro, Georgia, my son Wesley, he is 10 now. My mayor declared his birthday as Children's Financial Literacy Day. So that's March 16th is Children's Financial Literacy Day back in my hometown of Waynesboro, Georgia. So my hometown has been very supportive, and they put all my books into the local library there, schools, things like that. So they've been very supportive. So we've gotten in a couple schools here in Colorado and across the globe, and podcasts and YouTube has done pretty well to where we was able to meet a lot of people, grow across the globe, and meet all type of things. So I think that's about it for me in a gist. Hopefully I didn't talk too long.
That's it.
That's all.
That's
Nothing more than that. Yeah, man. That's not much. I don't know. I have no idea what we can talk about in this podcast.
We should just go talk about Halloween candy somewhere.
Halloween candy.
So I love that you took a need where there was a gap and you created a why and then just took massive action. That is such an amazing story. And I think that action also led to, we always talk about on the podcast, when you take action, it inevitably leads to other opportunities. I mean, come on, dude, like Shark Tank. I actually watched that one. I had no idea that famous Amos had kind of gotten in the situation he was. And for some reason, I turned on that specific Shark Tank, and it was fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. So I could have known you before, but hey, tell us a little bit. I also don't want it to get lost that you're a CTRC, so very
Mm-hmm.
near and dear to in
Mm-hmm.
my community, and I don't want to lose that. So if you could talk about a little bit about your military career as well and how you're kind of doing all this stuff at one time.
Okay. Well, I started my career as a logistics special storekeeper, and I served on submarines, and then I went to dive school. I became a scuba diver on a boat as well. So I was a scuba diver and storekeeper on my first submarine. So USS Albuquerque was my first boat. Then I went to shore duty. While I was on shore duty, I got IA to Iraq, and then I got IA to Iraq, and I started to feel a little funny when I about halfway through my Iraq tour, where they just pumped me for a bunch of Motrin and said, "Hey, don't worry about it, get back." So I get back, and pretty much they disqualified me from doing submarine duty and diving duty. They said, "Hey, you have to cross rate or separate." So these are the rates we need. We need intelligence right now. This is how I came into intelligence, and I went to NOC Pensacola first, and that was my first command. I did NOC Pensacola, and then I went and did direct support surface on the surface side. So I went and got the IW pin, then went and got my surface pin while riding surface ships out of Hawaii. And then from there, I came here to Denver as well. I just look at it, to me, in my younger years, was spending a lot of time going to college, studying, going to college. Once I finished college and, things like that, for the most part, I knew I wasn't going to go to school for a doctorate degree. I replaced the time with, I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to play video games. Nothing wrong with playing video games, but that kind of got old after a couple of weeks. I said, I need to do something else. I want to get into, what am I going to do for life after, And I started to what do I like? What do I want to do? And I just started filling up my time with business. Like, hey, I want to get into real estate. I want to get into finance. I want to actually use my education and to apply it to something. So on the intelligence side of the house, I learned a lot from research and data. Putting together data, reading data, putting together reports. Taking raw intelligence and turning it into a product that people can use and understand. And that applied to a lot of finance. So for prime example, people may look onto my show and say, hey, well, how do you know these things? How do you find this out? It's really just going through data, going through financial reports, the same way you would look at a balance sheet or a cash flow statement or an income statement, and seeing how they're talking to each other and telling a story over time, and listening to the CEO speak and things like that. So that was very a big skill that I took out of my intelligence side of the house, and then applying it as well to my finance background and things like that. So I just took a liking to it, and I never thought that it would really grow. Like, I didn't think internet radio would turn into podcasts that would turn into thousands of people tuning in and things like grow like how the industry has grown in general itself. But it did, and it became something. It gave me a voice. It gave a voice to people who traditionally wouldn't have had a voice. So so that's my military background that tied into my outside work. The finance side of the house, traveling around the globe, moving places, moving from California, from San Diego to Connecticut to Florida to Hawaii to Colorado. I've been back and forth across the country 2-3 times. So, and it let me meet so many people, just grew my network, so massively that I could have probably never done if I never would have left home. So I always advise people, shout out to my niece who just graduated Air Force boot camp. Hey, give the military a try. Great way to serve your country, honorable service. You can network, and it can help you find yourself, because people that knew me in high school knew that, even my dad would tell you that, he'll tell you every day, like, I was worried about you in high school. I didn't know what the world you was going, I didn't know what the world you was going to do. But, the military definitely built confidence. That was the key thing I learned over my career, was just straight confidence. All before was just that in my younger years in high school, it pretty prepared me for life. I had a lot of failure. I did the 6th grade 2 times. Never really got the honor roll, never was a great student or whatever. So I was used to a lot of failure, being told, no, you can't do this, which prepared me for life, adulthood, and in business. Because when I get told, no, I'm not, failure is like second nature to me. I almost kind of expect it. And when it do win, I'm like, whoa, this worked. This actually happened. So it's kind of crazy how life turns out. And yeah, that's the big thing I learned, was getting that confidence of like, hey, you can do this. You are, and studying, learning how to study, learning how to study and read better, and having that confidence. That's the biggest thing I would say the military's done, besides the networking piece too.
Well, how do you find the time? There's so many people that that have full-time jobs, W-2, military, and you're in the intel world, so you're like behind a skiff, all day long, where you can't bring your phones in, and you can't be on unclassified emails and computers. Like, what, how do you do it all? Like, how, where do you find the time?
Well, sometimes you may get lucky sometimes where you may be on a watch rotation, right? So you may be on a watch rotation where sometimes you may have some time off. Like, you may have a week off. Sometimes you may work a schedule where you may work 4 days on, then 4 days off, or the Panamas, the 2-3-2s, or something like those are the best schedules, because you actually get days off to where you can plan to do certain things. But I always tell people all the time, what you do outside of work is what will define your future. Once you get off work, or once you have your off time, if you go to school, if you keep going to school, you're eventually going to walk across the stage with a piece of paper, with a diploma. If you go to the gym every day, you're going to be in better shape. If you drink every day, you're going to be a heck of a drinker, right? And if you play video games, you're going to be a heck of a video game player. But if you are your time off, you come home, and I will say one of the biggest things that people, I think, that overlooks it is, it's a strong testament to my wife. So my wife, when I come home, I don't have to worry about a whole lot of things. I don't have to worry about, she's taking care of my son. She's taking care of the house. A lot of things are already taken care of. And she kind of let me go into my own zone of, in the beginning, she wasn't like that. She was like, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. You making a video? What, a video about what? You're going to upload it, and you're going to do this, and you're going to write a book. What is this guy on? But then again, when it started to, a light bulb went off, like, oh, okay, I see, this makes sense. Then I got a lot of leeway to take meetings, to do podcasts, be guest on podcasts, have guests onto my podcast, write books, collaborations, emails, sponsorships. It is a lot, And one thing I didn't mention was, in 2017, I launched my own nonprofit organization, the Global Children Financial Literacy Foundation, which was pretty much we just go with the mission of bringing financial literacy to kids. And the Wesley Learns Book Club is like the flagship program that we do. And we've also partnered with other people, for teenagers, for high schoolers, to learn entrepreneurship, Shark Tank style, things like that. That's a whole nother conversation. But then I launched the nonprofit in 2017. Then I launched my own company in 2013 in the beginning, because I knew that, hey, I want to get into finances or something like that one day. And that's what I've been working on. So when I have my time off, if I'm deployed somewhere and I got time off, I'm either going to be reading a book. It's pretty simple and easy when I have time off, that what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be responding to emails, reaching out to people, reading, studying, coming up with new content, things that I like. And it's so much easier when it's something that you like to do. Something you enjoy to do is easy to produce content and to do it, versus if it's something that I really didn't like to do, it would be like pulling teeth. So it just comes off so much easier. Oh, I want to talk about this today. I want to do that. I want to do this. I want to look into this. I want to read this. And every time I have off, it's just that I'm just super focused, In a world of distractions, being focused is very hard. It's just that I know exactly what I want to do. That's how I can make it happen. Now, I'm not going to lie. Balancing is ridiculous. Schedule does get ridiculous. Does get ridiculous, But I'm like a bear. I take a couple of days. I hibernate to to get energy to go for the next couple of days of,
Nice.
That's
things
what
like
I'm gonna
that.
ask
So
you is kind of that balance piece, because I'm really curious on how you so are you, just to be clear, are you you're a reservist right now?
no, I'm active.
So you are active right now, and you're doing all this stuff on the side.
Yep.
So, I mean, how do you, like, what does a day look like? Like, how do you give me some practical application to balance and what that looks like for you?
Okay. So let's say, for prime example, one thing is I have a digital calendar. I got to have a digital calendar or things are just not going to happen. So I wake up and immediately I write down my goals, accomplishment for the day. So I will wake up in the day. I manage portfolios. So I wake up in the morning. It's like, hey, you got to go through. I like look at his face. So the first thing I do is wake up in the morning. I had to look at, hey, what's new, what things I want to do. And I make notes into everybody's portfolio that I'm managing and say, hey, these are the changes that I want to do. These are the things I'm looking at doing, X, Y, Z. Then I go to my digital calendar. What's on my digital calendar for the day? Did someone schedule an appointment? Did someone have an appointment coming up? If not, then, then I know how to balance my day out on that end. Then it's like, okay, my work schedule. Now I got to go in, I got to go do work or whatever, right? If I have work. Now at lunchtime, I may go check my phone to see if I got a phone call, maybe to respond back to phone calls, little miscellaneous things or whatever, right? Then now that I'm off, then it's the time to follow up with emails, because also on top of that, I'm part of the Colorado Department of Education's Financial Literacy Committee. So the Financial Literacy Committee will write in the entire curriculum for financial literacy for the entire state. So I have to keep up to date. So my whole day, I know exactly these are things I'm going to work on every single day. I'm part of the Financial Literacy Committee. Am I going to do a podcast? I'm almost like a robot. Like, content comes out easy. I know how to make content very easy. I know how to go in and say, hey, well, we had this appointment. Let's move this appointment to Friday afternoon. Let's move this appointment to Saturday. Let's move this appointment to Sunday, or to meet with people. And I guess I've been doing it so long, it just doesn't, match. I use a little leave. I take leave and I go do what I need to do. If it's that stressful, I definitely need to have time off. I take a little leave or whatever, and it's not that bad. Boys and girls clubs don't open up until 3:00. They go from 3:00 to 8:00. If you want to do a boys and girls club, if I'm going to do if a school is happening and I'm on a schedule, I pick an off day. Hey, I'm off these 2 days. I can show up to your school, or I can take a face-to-face meeting, or I may have to catch it on the back end. And then also on top of that too, when I'm doing business with people, I also let them know what my schedule looks like. Hey, I'm active duty. All these things are going on, so people will work with you. For the most part, people have been, leaning to say, hey, you know what? Yes, we'll work with you. We'll make this happen, and things like that. And I just learned in business, a lot of things happen after hours or the weekends or events, because I always try to make sure back before the pandemic, I always go out to a lot of social events, or something's going on, or award ceremonies or whatever, to meet people, see what's going on in the city, keep a finger on the pulse or whatever, and just make it happen like that. Now, granted, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. It's a ton of things that I've missed out, that I've had to, that I could have done that I wasn't able to do. So I can't get it all, but that's just my way of, hey, this is what I want to have, and do. So it's a little strenuous, but I make it happen. So
So you sleep like 30 minutes at night?
30 minutes a night. Sometimes it feels like that, like you take a day like today, we're in the middle of Chiefs season. So that we're in the middle of Chiefs season, we had training, I just got done with training. Come home, I walk in and it's just boom, it's straight into a podcast. Then straight after this podcast, it'll be my podcast that I'll do a live tonight. Then after my live tonight, then it'll be studying first, then to go into my live tonight. But I already know what my topic is going to be. I'm going to research it some more, bring it to the audience. Then it's going to go straight into studying for the next day.
Hey, let's talk about Boys and Girls Club a little bit and what you're doing with that, and also Department of Education. And I want to get more details on, the book and how you're awarding stocks, because I think it's so cool, man. And then leading into your program that you really want to work on, this kindergarten K plan.
Okay, so the thing is, how the stocks thing work is that let's say we get a corporate sponsor. Bank of America says, hey, we want to sponsor you. They write a check out to my nonprofit organization. Money comes into the nonprofit organization. We have a brokerage account for the nonprofit, on that brokerage account, we go on, we buy stocks. We have Apple, and we currently hold Apple and Kraft Heinz cheese, right? Because, kids love Capri Suns and cheese, whatever. So we have Kraft Heinz cheese, we have Apple, and then we have some Nike as well. So it just sits there. Then what happens is we take that money and that's what we purchase the books with. We purchase the books, we go into a Boys and Girls Club. The Boys and Girls Club gets the books, and then the kids read them. The kids read the first book, or they usually have someone sit down with them. Most Boys and Girls Club have a type of reading program. So they'll read the first book with the kids. Then it's a 5-question quiz that the kids will take. Kids will take it. Once they're done, once they award their winner, we give them a pizza party. The club will award their winner. We go into the kid. We say, hey, we sit down with their parents. We say, hey, in order for us to award you the stock, you must have a brokerage account. So you need to go create a brokerage account. If you need assistance with creating a brokerage account, some people that we can call and kind of help you out with that. The parent goes off. They create a brokerage account. It could be with TD Ameritrade, E-Trade, Robinhood, whoever, and they pass us their account number and name, and we transfer the stock from our foundation's broker to their account, and the kid becomes a first-time shareholder. And that's how we've been doing it now for last 2 years, 3 years, so something like that. So yeah,
super cool, man. And do you kind of teach the kids about stocks and kind of what it means to be a shareholder and the
yes,
the background?
We go in, especially on the graduation day. We definitely go in. We speak to them. Also, throughout the training program, we'll go in and speak if before COVID start to go crazy or whatever. We'll go in, we'll talk to the kids, walk them through it, and say, hey, what did you learn from this? Wesley and his dad purchased their first stocks. Because in the book, Wesley Learns to Invest, you can follow it step by step. They created a custodian account. They went out and purchased the first stock. Wesley got a couple of ideas of getting his first stock. Then he also was awarded a dividend check. So by reading that book, you're going to get introduced into what a custodian account is, how him and his dad got along and create a custodian account. How do they find stocks to buy? How do they raise the money to purchase their first stocks? And then how they earn the dividend check at the end, all in a little children's book storyline. So kids are getting that introduction, because my biggest goal is to say, I could understand, you may not want to do it, you may not have the interest, but I never want somebody to say I never had the opportunity. So it's providing you that opportunity. And if you didn't take advantage of that opportunity, that's on you. Someone came in, they offered you something, they tried to give it to you. But how America's financial system is set up now is that if you're born on the wrong side of tracks, you don't get financial literacy. In order to get a custodian account, if you don't have mom, dad, uncle, cousin, grandma, and they don't open up an account for you, you just don't get one. Which leads me into the kindergarten K plan, whereas I look at this program and I said, well, how can I scale it? How can I scale it? It's just that when you graduate high school, you turn 18, you graduate high school, everybody throws money at you. They got all type of scholarships. They got this type of money. They got all type of grants to go to school, get a trade. All this money get thrown at you at 18, right? Some of you got to pay back, but you get all this money thrown at you. And I just say, hey, and every year, everybody knows the cost of education is constantly going up. So you're seeing scholarships funds that was started back in the 70s or 80s become totally, as the years go along, they're coming less and less relevant. The reason why is that when you gave somebody $3,000 back in the 80s, that got them through a year or two of school. Now you give somebody $3,000 in 2021, that's like 2 books.
Yeah.
You know,
one
so
class, one semester.
The cost of education is going up. So I say, well, how about all this money we allocate to scholarships and this and that, all stuff like that? Home Depot, they're giving people scholarships, $50,000, all this when I'm 18. What if we did that to kindergartners? What if we gave that to, hey, you walked into school, here you have the opportunity to get an investment account. You must take a financial literacy course every year. You get an investment account, and you must successfully graduate high school. And when you turn 18 years old, boom, now you have a portfolio to go off into the world to say, hey, now I may want to go buy my first piece of real estate. I may want to go buy a car wash, whatever you want to do in life. Become a real estate agent, everybody doesn't want to go to a 4-year school and become, get a bachelor's degree in something. So I look at it, I say that with all these resources that we're giving to everybody, and the way the economical system is set up right now, if you don't have that, like you take my son, if he was born on the other side of the tracks, he probably wouldn't have an investment account. But since I'm his dad, hey, he has an investment account ever since he was 2 or 3 years old, right? So how can we reach other people that wouldn't even have access? And the one thing that everybody does, everybody goes to school. So why don't we provide that 5-year-old, hey, you have the opportunity to enroll into a program that's going to, give you an investment account. You have to work for it. You have to study for it. You have to have financial literacy. Then within 18 years, this is compounding interest. Because the thing about it is, corporations, you're going to have to donate more and more money every year because the cost of education, inflation is now running at 5%. So you got to keep putting more and more money into things in order to have the same impact, to where it's like, hey, you know what? Let's use this thing called time horizon and time versus money. And let's use 12, 13 years of growth to our advantage, to say, hey, little Timmy, if you can keep your nose clean and you graduate school, you're going to be awarded an investment account. That's just my thought process. That's the kindergarten K plan that I look at, that I've been working on now for a couple months, and hopefully about a year or two, I can make it happen. So
I love that, and I have no doubt in my mind that within a year or two, or even sooner, that you will make that happen. That's I think that's an amazing plan, and just the empowerment to the future generations. And like you said, it doesn't have to be a one-time huge amount. You have 18 years, 15, 18 years to build something up. I mean, that's a long runway to really accomplish them. So I think I love it. That is
and the other thing too, Dave, is that over time we're learning that the 4-year traditional college is becoming less and less relevant. Right. Everybody know that tech school is where it's at. Tech school is becoming more, right now, if my lights go out, I'm not going to call electrical engineer. I'm probably going to call electrician. Yep. Same thing with our toilets. So some people look over, hey, you know what? If you start investing for a kid now, by the time they're 18 years old, you're going to be able to pay for a trade, like out of pocket. Like this kid is probably going to be able to get a trade to where they can walk off making a nice salary. Now they can go off and get a degree. But the thing about it, in this economy we're seeing now, it's more about skill set. What can you actually do? How can you bring a skill to the marketplace? So,
yeah, and now that they wouldn't be in debt, they wouldn't have tons of college debt, credit card debt. They would know how to actually write a check and balance their checkbook. And well, there might not be checks in 18 years, but like they actually they're literate, like they know about finances. It's awesome.
And the thing they have watched their investment account for the last 12, 13 years. Because every year they get an annual review of what their investment account is doing. And the thing about it is, one of the things I look to implement is to say, hey, you know what? We're just going to give the kids an index fund, an S&P 500 index fund. Just kids are going to get it, and we're just going to watch it compound for them. The kids can see it. They can see like, wow, I have money and it's actually growing, and it actually incentivizes graduating high school. So I look at it as a win-win. The school, why wouldn't you want to have it? I can incentivize graduating, and if I can incentivize graduating, that can lower my dropout rate. Because I could say, hey, look, kids, you guys leaving money on the table by dropping out of high school. Literally, you have an investment account that you're not going to be eligible for because you want to be a knucklehead. Other side of the house is, hey, if you're a donor, I'm teaching you a way of donating less money over time. Now, you're not going to get that immediate impact, but over time, you're going to, in 10 to 15 or 12 years, whatever, when this kid gets older, they're going to recognize more. And people say, Prince, why not high schoolers? It's simple. High schoolers don't have that longer time horizon. They need their money in 1 or 2 years. What if we have a market correction next year or whatever? The kids who have the most to benefit from it are the younger ones. Hey, we get the younger kids. Hey, we're going to have these kids for 12, 13 years sometimes, some case. In my case, 14 years. But, you're going to have kids going through school this much time. Let's utilize this time horizon and just let this money compound. And then when they're 18 years old, how about we award it to them that way? And they're not absorbing debt before they even get a job. Now they have to, this to working a waiter to order to pay off school debt when you have this big old degree. We all know the current system of, hey, I went and got this big piece of paper, but now I don't have any experience or I don't have the proper connections. So now I'm just, I'm waiting at Applebee's and Chili's until I can pay off some of my student loans. I mean, that's crazy. And we live in the richest country in the world. So that's just my thought process.
And I think the other side of that's not as easily quantifiable or to be able to put a price tag on is the experience and the knowledge that they come out with. And just the ability to even analyze an investment, to understand the growth, to have, as you were saying, Stu and Prince, the financial literacy. And then even more so, something that you hit on much earlier, Prince, was they now have confidence as well in the decision-making process where money is involved. And with that confidence and with that knowledge, they have options. And I think that you can't put a price tag on the fact that you're giving these young adults, by the time they're graduating, these young adults options for life, that they don't have to just follow the traditional incorrect method of that gets a lot of our parents and their parents into this this cycle. And so I think that's, dude, I think it's awesome. I love it.
And I just came up with the kindergarten K plan. I was it's a guy here, he owns a Greek restaurant. Oh, he's gonna kick me for not knowing his name. Yanni's. So he's a retired CPA, and we were sitting down. They did a movie premiere, and the after party was at his restaurant. That's how I got introduced to him. And I was just sitting down talking to him one day, and he said, Prince, you know what? Kindergarten K, like a 401k, but for kids. So that's what the whole idea. I was like, you know what?
That was great.
I said, don't sue me in 5 years, but I'm gonna use it. Right. So I'm gonna run with, build this whole thing out and go for it. And I try to do the whole corporate thing, like get corporations and politicians, but I feel like that'll be so convoluted and take so long. So I said, hey, you know what? I need something to work on anyway. I like to work on problems. So let me work on this. Let me get, all of the different licenses, all of the different paperworks and all the other stuff like that. So just been running with it, making it happen.
Well, you just completed a pretty big milestone of that, right? You sent me a text not too long ago. You got your, what is it? Your series 67?
Yep. 65. I got the 65, and I actually filed for a registered investment advisory here in Colorado. I had a hearing about 2 weeks ago, and hopefully in the next month or so, I'll be a registered investment advisory, and that'll be a huge milestone to where, hey, you can now hold assets and, things like that. And, then I know a couple schools. I've been working with the schools. So the premise is to, hey, start with a small school and see how it goes and iron out all your wrinkles. Then you can just see to grow behind it. So once it's there and I have it there, then I'll go out and, because I know some people in media and things like that. But I use all of that once media, I look at using that once I'm ready.
Yeah.
Once I can capitalize off of media, not just to be on TV, for the sake of it. So to capitalize off of it, to say, hey, you know what? I created this program, I worked on it, and it actually works. And these are the kids we've used to with. This is what we've done already. We've written the books on it. We've turned kids into first-time shareholders, and here are the kids. And now we work with the school or maybe a smaller daycare. A daycare is even better because the kids are younger. To say, hey, you know what? This is what we're doing. These are the things that I don't like. And even doing it at the level I've done it so far, I've learned lessons. One lesson I hate is, not hate, but dislike is, once I give away the stock, it is the parent stock. I got to hope the parent does the right thing with that particular stock. Another thing is some parents may not, I got to tell the stories, but sometimes with some parents, I had to educate the parents to even take free shares of Coca-Cola. I said, hey, here are free shares. And they're like, oh, well, what's the catch? How much does that cost? And what's that going to do? And blah, blah, blah. And I had to go educate the parent just to take the shares, free shares for the kid. So I look at it and say, well, sometimes some parents or guardians are not in the best positions to even take it on hand. So those are little things that I'm looking at, that I got a couple securities attorneys that I'm gonna look at to see what are some ways to figure out some problems and, to make it better. So maybe my job is just to spark the next mind to do it on a massive level.
I love it, man.
Oh yeah. I forgot the Warren Buffett story that everybody talks about too. I used to always go to, before COVID happened, I used to always go to Omaha to Berkshire, and I knew some of Buffett's people over the years, just meeting them. And one day one of his people invited me to lunch, and I go to lunch, and at the time I didn't know it was Miss Buffett that I was having lunch with. And she talked to me throughout the whole lunch. She introduced herself by her first name. She didn't say, hey, I'm Miss Buffett. She didn't say who she was until at the end. She's like, hey, I just really, I thought maybe she worked for Buffett, or maybe she, worked for the company or something. And she said,
He
no,
works for her, I'm sure.
Say again?
I said he works for her.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, she tells the guy on which she's like, hey, find out where's Warren. And the guy comes back and say, he just got back to his office. And I'm so used to calling him, Warren, there's like 91 years old, but everybody around him calls him Warren, but I always call him Mr. Buffett. And he just says, hey, she said, hey, he just got back to the office. She's like, okay, come with me. And just took me to his office. And the first two people I met was Todd and, what's Todd? Ted and Todd. Ted and Todd, these are the guys who are notorious for reading so many financial reports. They're the ones that bought all the Apple stock. They're the ones that bought Amazon. They're the ones that kind of put Berkshire into the new league of, instead of the old school railroads, they're the ones that's like, hey, we need to get a crap ton of Apple. We need to get a crap ton of Amazon. All these big purchases of modern day, they purchase the IPO, which Buffett never does. And I ran to them first. It's like, hey, I'm Ted. I'm like, I've been reading about you guys freaking forever. When are y'all ever going to show your face? There's like, never. There's like, and they were kind of coined to take over for Warren, but I know, and then one of them ended up in the beginning of January. Now he's the president of Geico. So Warren made him he paid $1 million to have lunch with Warren, and he paid $1 million to have Todd paid $1 million to have a lunch with Warren once. He won a raffle, paid $1 million, had lunch with him, and he asked Warren for a job. And the next year, they did the raffle again. He paid $1 million again, won again. And Warren was like, okay, well, you know what? I might have something that, how does this guy keep winning? And now he gave him $3 billion to manage. And now, I guess he did pretty good with that. Now he's the CEO of Geico. They're announcing the Geico CEO. So I met those two guys first. And then, Warren's office opened up to his door, and his Miss Buffett just walks me straight in. It's like, Warren, you got to meet this guy. He reaches his hand out, so humble. He's like, hey, I'm Warren. I'm like, yeah, I think I recognize you. And he takes the books. He asked to keep my books or whatever. And I said, definitely you can have them. And then his wife said, no, I was telling him that you was going to sign them. So he writes letters to me and my son in each one of my books. And I said, Mr. Buffett, that's the only copy that I brought. You wrote in them. And I remember studying you, something called intrinsic value. The intrinsic value is just increased by you signing these. I got to take these. So he said, sure, you could take them, but send a copy to the office, send a copy of each one to the office and send me an invoice. I said, okay. Then they give me a tour to his office. Like, he got all his artifacts of him and Bill Gates. And, when they first met, his first stock he purchased, this company, that company, these, artifacts that he keep in his office, all type of stuff or whatever. Very modest office, very modest thing or whatever. And then at the end, he says, hey, I got to run. I got to meet with Becky Quick from CNBC for dinner tonight. And if you're not busy, could you join us? I was like, oh, yeah.
I got plans.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I think, yeah, definitely. I'll be there. And so his people sent me the address and met him up for dinner. It was me, it was Warren Buffett, Miss Buffett, and his bodyguard, and Becky Quick from CNBC. So, that was that. And at the end, I ended up driving this car. That was always the coolest part of the story, because his security wanted me to stay with Mr. Buffett while he went and got the car. And I didn't feel comfortable with doing that, because people were walking up, some people wanted autographs, some people wanted pictures, some people wanted this or whatever. And he was keeping them at bay. And I said, well, I don't know whose family or what's the protocol. What are you supposed to do? I don't know. So I said, I don't really feel comfortable with being in that position. He said, well, can you go grab the car? I was like, okay. And I thought this car was going to be I don't know. I thought it was going to be like 4 people carrying him on a chariot or something. But no, it was I think it was like a Honda or something, and just the humbleness. He walks into the restaurant like a regular person, had his head down, and, so definitely, he ended up putting that whole story, his historian put the whole story into his book that came out in 2020 about his life. And, they took all my pictures and videos and stuff like that. And, and he had one request. He was just like, hey, just the pictures of my wife, keep those to yourself. I said, okay, no problem. So that was like, I don't know. I don't think I can do anything to top Mr. Buffett,
Awesome, man.
That's an incredible story. Thank you for sharing that. I think.
Oh, yeah.
I can't even imagine what. I love how they were like, hey, can you just stay here with Mr. Buffett and kind of run guard? Like, come on, man.
I was like, some people are coming up. Some people they know, some people they don't know. I was like, I don't know who is who. Let the wrong person up. If I don't let the person up, then now I said, no, I'm not qualified for this. I can help in another capacity, but I can't, keep anybody at bay or anything like that. So, but yeah, very humble guy. Very the lesson on humility, and the lesson of the thing that I always learned from Berkshire was to always. Because the crazy part, I remember this happening like yesterday. I would go to the meetings and I would meet athletes that I know. Oh, this guy's in the NBA. I know him. He's an NBA All-Star. Oh, this boxer, I know him. He just signed a $300 million deal. That athlete made $100 million or $200 million or whatever. And they wanted to meet with Warren. And I went out and asked, I said, hey, these people would like to meet with you. And they're like, no, they declined. So when I asked, I said, well, why would y'all want to take me off the streets but not meet with these guys who are highly successful, popular, famous? And the lesson was, look at people's character over their money. He was like, you can fix money, you can't fix character. If you're going to do business with somebody and they're a horrible dad or a horrible husband, what type of business partner they're going to be? So that was the nuggets that I got, I was like, oh, I didn't think of about. He said, if it's a company, look at the management. More so than looking at the money, look at the management. If it's bad management, it doesn't matter how much money you throw at it. It's going to reflect what management is doing. So those were the lessons and gems that I learned over the years and things like that. And shout out to Berkshire and Buffett and things like that. So great people over there. Very simple, humble people. And the a fun fact is Mark Cuban came the day before. And from Shark Tank, Mark Cuban came the day before I met him, and Warren took him to Dairy Queen. And he said the guy was like the same guy that was with me. He said he was with Mark Cuban and Warren. He said I took him to Dairy Queen. He said nobody recognized him. He said that we went in, we ordered, people ordered, they sat down, everybody walked right by him, didn't know. He said it was just one customer that took that had an ice cream that just walked in, walked by. I was like, are you? Then he said immediately they went viral. But it was like everybody just walked in, nobody knew, just sat down at Dairy Queen. But he said he's very rarely let anybody to his office. He usually go out to a Dairy Queen or something like that. But that's just his mentality of, hey, if you can't sit down and eat a ice cream at Dairy Queen, who do you think you are? Type deal. Mm-hmm. Same thing with, going to his office. So he's just a very humble, and it was very inspiring. And he just said, hey, I want to do something like this. I want to do something great in life, awesome in life, or whatever. And, to me, my biggest role model in finance was just, and for him to know who I am and endorse what I'm doing. I'm just like, man, I got to go do something in life now.
Super cool, man. Well, speaking of what is next, I know you're are you planning on kind of ending your Navy career pretty soon? And what's after that?
Yeah, definitely. I've been approved to retire. I've been approved to retire, and also been approved for the Skill Bridge program. So I'll be interning at a investment firm. Also having my own firm itself, own registered investment advisory. I got picked. I don't know if y'all are familiar with the Amazon DSP program, the delivery service program with pretty much like a franchise almost of Amazon. But I applied for that last year and got picked up and selected for it. And they actually called me to go to New Orleans and start one. But unfortunately, I can't do it at this time. So that's one of the things on the table. But one of the things I definitely want to get into is setting up my own entity firm and finding the true identity of how I exactly want the firm to build out and work. Do I want to get into the private equity space? Do I want to get into the venture capital space? How do I want to, run things or whatever? So that's huge for me. The podcasting thing, definitely I'm always going to be some form of podcast and media, some sort. And just putting, I would say also, of course, I don't know if I'll write another book, because I'm looking to have greater impact with working with schools, school districts, and writing the financial literacy inside of the curriculum that I'm working on now for the state of Colorado. And just going forward and doing great things, turning to, having that investment firm, building my for-profit side, building the nonprofit side, and having the for-profit support the nonprofit. That's my my ultimate goal.
Yeah, I mean, and you're a man of small goals, so I think that's
very small. Keep them small as possible.
Small as possible so they're achievable. Hey, man, Prince, I just want to tell you that there are so many other questions I have. We're gonna have to have you back on the show because there's some other things that I really want to dig into. But I just want to encourage you, man. I love your vision. I love the fact that you are so outwardly focused, that you're looking at solutions to hard problems, that you're empowering people. And I'll tell you, there's probably some frustration in having to teach the parents of the kids that you're giving free stock to. But what I will say is you've changed their lives. You have empowered those parents to be better parents, to educate their children, and you've made them better human beings through the education and what you've invested and given to them. So I know that there's some frustration in that, but I just want to encourage you that I love it, and I love your vision. I love your focus. inspires me. It humbles me. And, you know, I want to be more like Prince Dykes when I grow up. That's awesome, man. You're doing amazing things, and it's just been a pleasure to get to know you, and I look forward to our continued conversations and ways that we can connect and help serve together. And yeah, I think it's amazing.
Definitely appreciate it. I thank y'all for having me on and hearing me ramble about my life and story and all these other goofy things and stuff like that too. So definitely.
Man. How can people get a hold of you? What's the best way for folks to reach out if they want to talk to you about the kindergarten K plan?
You know, definitely my email address is prince@childrenfinancialliteracy.org. That's prince@childrenfinancialliteracy.org. All that is singular. So it's just childrenfinancialliteracy.org. You can log on to our website, GCFLF.com. That's just the acronym for Global Children Financial Literacy.org. You can log on there. Also, you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on YouTube, and those are probably the best ways, you know, check out and follow what I do, and just going from there.
Yeah, he only has like 50,000 followers or something like that.
Yes,
It's
thanks
close.
to everybody that follows and all of the people, you know, like I got to give a big shout out to, you know, Warren Buffett, Terrell Davis, Rod Smith, Famous Amos Cookies. Those people, if it wasn't for them, I would never got the opportunities to be seen, you know, all the different athletes, you know, I mean, even the father of the 401k, Mr. Ted Benner, all those people that's coming on the show, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I mean, the list just goes on of a lot of people that have put me in a position to be seen or to share my content, to be seen by other people, and who likes what I do and thinks, oh, this goofy guy is all right, you know, and gets to
Hey
follow.
man, now you made
Definitely
the
appreciate it.
big time, right? You're filling the
Now you're on
Storehouse
Phil and Storehouse
podcast.
podcast. Like that's like top of the line, dude.
Exactly right. See, exactly. That's
Top of the
definitely
line.
top. Like, you know, I'm gonna have to call Andy Sorey and be like, hey man, forget that Yahoo Finance. You know where I was at today?
Yeah, that's right.
Check these guys.
Check out Stu and Dave, those yahoos.
Stu and Dave.
Fucking knuckleheads.
Yeah. Well, guys and gals, hey, get in touch with Prince. He's obviously a man of action. He's got big goals, and if there's a way that you think you can help Prince, like reach out to him, and let's make this world a better place. I love it. Subscribe to all of his stuff, and hey, most importantly, go fill your storehouse.
Hey, make it a great day, friends. Prince, thanks, my man. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Stu. Appreciate it.
Sir. See you.